Well, welcome to the Teach Bigger podcast. I'm Chris Pratt, and I'm here with Tyler Lamond. And hope you're having a good day today. So, Tyler, tell me something good that happened to you today.
Something good. I unsubscribed to 33 different email news lists in my email. And because I did that, I was able to delete over 1,000 emails in my little Gmail account, my promotions. And I kind of had this realization: newsletters are kind of dumb. Like, nobody reads them.
Well,
They
I'm sure somebody reads them.
I mean, I don't think so.
Your experience is not the human experience.
I look, if there's someone out there who's like, ooh, yeah, the newsletter, let's see what's news going on. Like, I don't feel like people look in their email like that.
You'd be surprised.
I mean, I feel like people mainly use their email like for like, oh, this person emailed me, to email them back.
Well, maybe we need to change that. Maybe we need to make email a source of entertainment.
Okay, let's send out a newsletter.
Right? Like, think how much fun it would be if every time you opened your email, it was like something exciting and like fun and funny and like made your day.
I guess.
I
I just know that like there was literally, I'm trying to think of the subscriptions that I stayed with. One subscription I stayed with was called Output, which is an audio interface thing that gives me updates with like whatever. Another one is MCS, which is a industrial thing, which is where I buy like a lot of my power tools and stuff. And I get they send out coupons, so I kept that. And then there is a website called that'swhyimbroke.com, and they send out a monthly newsletter about really dumb stuff that looks really cool and that I should probably not buy, but it's really nice to look at.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Hey, look,
So,
you got to take care of your email. You got to do what you got to do.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that everyone who's listening is sitting there thinking like, yeah, man, my school email is just bogged down with a whole bunch of just like spam. Like like only 20% of it's actually worth anything.
Well, hey, I don't know
That
what to
being
tell you.
said, that being said, did you send out your Tech Tip Tuesday today to the entire district?
I did. I did, and that's not spam. That's powerful. So, well, I will say this. What are we in, like, the 6th week of quarantine now?
I think so.
So I was thinking about this the other day. I realized, like, an entire grading period has gone by with no school, but with school. And, like,
Yep.
and I mean, I realize some people are on 6 weeks, some are on 9 weeks. We're actually on a 9 weeks. We just started that this year, but 6 weeks, that's what I've known my whole life, and that's a long time of instruction. So, how you feeling?
I mean, I was on 6 week schedule all the way up until high school,
Mm-hmm.
and I just assumed that like 6 weeks was like a little kid thing, and 9 weeks was like a big kid thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually went on 9 week schedule last year, and
Yeah.
so I feel like not a lot of learning has gone on.
Yeah.
I feel like there's been a lot of like just holding on to normalcy.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things that we're realizing is the role that school plays in everyone's life. Whether you're a parent, whether you're a student, whether you're a teacher, that school in session and going to that physical location, it really shapes our entire lives. Now, that's kind of crazy if you think about it.
And what's really crazy is the amount of time that it's wasted during a school day, but yet how important that school day is.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, that was one I think we talked about before. That was one of the biggest things that shocked our administration is when we had our first meeting a week after our first week, and I was like, yeah, all majority of my kids logged on Monday and did all their work at once, and they're like, what? You
Mm-hmm.
know, like, so like they did a week's worth of work. Now, granted, it wasn't like a full loads work because like, you know, we were giving it light, but still they got it all done within a week, or the, like, you know, the go-getters did, you
Yeah.
know, but I mean, that's still like not a lot of work, but I think I think we forget. And I know like this, like I'm about to make a lot of people mad, but I mean, school's a daycare. It's a place for kids to go to where they might learn, they might not, but it's a place for kids to go to so that way parents can go out and work. And I'm not saying that it's that I'm not saying that is the primary function. I'm just saying that that is a byproduct of the functionality of the public education school system. Is that it's a daycare for kids all the way up until 18.
But on the flip side, as educators, though, we can look at that as exclusive time to really shape kids, which is a good thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is because, like, I remember being in college and in one of my ed classes, my professors was telling me about how he went all the way to Subway to meet with a parent for a parent teacher conference or something like that. And I was thinking, oh well, that's cool, like trying to meet them where they're at. But his mind frame was because they're the parent and like, who am I? I'm just a teacher. And I'm like, no, like, who are you? I was like, you're the person who's seeing their kid 8 hours every single day for 5 days out of the week. Like, you literally see their kid more than they see their kid. Like, you're a huge, and especially like if you're an extracurricular person, then
Yeah.
you're really gonna see those kids more. And I'm not saying that teachers try like are better than parents by any means, but like we definitely have like a huge role in the development of a person. And I was on the phone with my landlord today actually, and because I'm about to move, and she knows I'm a teacher, and she was just like, like I have a whole new respect for you and what you do, and because like I'm trying to balance my job and I have my kid at home and I got to make sure I'm on top of him that he's doing his schoolwork. And the first thing that came to my mind is like, well, I mean, why aren't you on top of your kid doing his schoolwork when he's in normal school? Like, I mean, I know he like has to log on, but I mean, still like, I mean, homework is homework. So I don't know. Do you think that I feel like there's been a shift in ratio of appreciation to teachers? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that there's a way bigger awareness of the importance of public education, or I guess, even if it's private or whatever, of the role that teachers play. And I think that parents are starting to realize what a challenge it is to make sure that their kids are learning what they need to be learning. You know, my family, we do homeschool, and so that's we're all aware of that challenge on a daily basis. But I think a lot of times it's easy to forget that raising kids is hard and teaching kids is difficult. And that's not to say we shouldn't do it or run away from it. By all means, like, that's why we should do it. But it takes time and it takes investment. And so I guess my thinking is this, like, I think if anything, we've had as educators some time away from the classroom to kind of reflect and realize what we do offer, and it's vital to the success really of our culture and of our nation. And I think that teachers are I mean, we always say, we're on the front lines and all this other kind of stuff, but I think there's a sobering reality in America right now that our education system is the backbone of what we're doing. And so I want to, kind of like encourage teachers with that. Like, whenever we get back or whatever, like, let's take that momentum and run with it, because you're going to be coming back to a bunch of people that are really glad to see you. And maybe in the past you haven't really felt that appreciated. So I think that now's the time where, as educators, we've got to kind of take a look and say, like, what do I do to make myself better now? Like, what do I do to make sure that I'm giving it all that I can and not just do the routine?
Well, okay, so then that raises a question: is why why do you think teachers I mean, now, like I said, like I think that it's changed, and you're right. Like we're gonna be kind of welcomed back with open arms. But I mean, why do you think that the teaching profession is like almost looked down on? Like, why do you think that is?
I don't have a good answer for that, and I mean, I'm sure there's a reason that it developed such a negative stigma. Um, I don't know though, because that's a good question. Because you've always heard like those who can't teach and all this other garbage like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know what? I really kind of think it has a lot to do with how we're funded and how we're paid, because people value you at your salary. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, this is Doctor So and So, and he drives this car and does this, and everyone's like, ooh, he's really smart. Not
Oh yeah. Oh,
necessarily.
oh yeah. He's really successful.
Right, not necessarily. And so I think a lot of times educators might get a bad rap because at the end of the day, the government's paying us and they're not paying us very much. And so the result is that people see that not as a worthy profession because I can't make a really amazing living at it.
I mean, okay, and this is funny because I was on the phone with a teacher today, um, and we were talking about this, and I was like, can you imagine? And I think we might have talked about this in season one of our podcast, but can you imagine if like teachers were like, it was like the NFL, and
Mm-hmm.
you got drafted by a school,
Mm-hmm.
and like everyone was like, yeah, I landed this job at this school, like they picked me up, like da da da, and like, can you like just imagine for a second that like instead of you being like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go work at this school and I'm gonna teach math, it's like, oh, I'm starting at this school right now, and then I'm hoping to go over to above normal high school, and that's gonna really further my English education career.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, but I guess another thing is that it's hard to measure a teacher's merit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you measure a teacher's merit? Because
Because by
with
all means, it's not just test scores. That's for sure.
Right, and that's what I was about to say. It's not just test scores. So then it's like, well, then how do you do it? Because like at the it, with any game, you can break any game. If you know the rules, you can break it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you can play it the way it wasn't meant to be done. And like that's actually something that online gaming figured out like very early on. Like when the original Xbox came out, Xbox 360, is that these game developers were making these games. They're making multiplayer and stuff, and they designed it to be played in a certain way. And then when they gave it out to the masses looked at it and was like, well, that way is really stupid and kind of hard. Like it's much easier, and you can get way more kills and points and do this if you do it this other way. So then they like kind of broke the game because now they're playing it a different way, and now they totally changed how they do online plays.
Hmm.
And I mean that was like 10 years ago, like almost 15 years ago. But so it's like if you find a way to like gain merit, then there's going to be someone like in terms of band, because I was a band director and you were a band director for a long time. In the band world, especially in Texas, the merit is like you go out and you win your trophy,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how you know that you are a really good teacher, because you went out and you won everything. And I bet coaches have the same stigma, that if you win it and bring home a trophy and you make it to state or whatever, then like then by God you're a good coach.
Right.
But like you can be a bad coach and still bring home trophies.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, you can be a really great coach and never win
Mm-hmm.
because
Right.
it just depends on what your mission is and your vision is. If your mission is to win trophies, and you don't win trophies, then you failed. But if your
Mm.
mission is to really truly make a difference in kids' lives and make them better people and prepare them for life, then a trophy can't measure that.
Yeah. So then it becomes then the question still stands, like then how do you measure the merit of a teacher? And the only thing I can think of, the way you measure a merit of a teacher, is that you you follow the students who you taught.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's like I know for a fact, out of the I don't know how many kids I've taught through percussion or whatever, but I know there's been at least 10 of them that have gone out to be professional musicians, whether they've gone to college and like pursued a music education degree, or they've just become a gigging musician and they just go out. Or my favorite, which is where they go out to become an engineer, but they still like go out and play gigs for their church and things or whatever. Because like that's my favorite because like they're being a person in society, but they still kept their music background. But like that to me, like that's merit. But in order to gain that, like that takes like generations.
Hmm.
And by the time you've earned the merit, it's like you're too old to cash in on it.
Well,
Maybe. I don't know.
I think that's why, and maybe this will help some teachers avoid comparing themselves or avoid like that burnout kind of feel. Is you have to have the right perception of yourself, and that it is that you're just a servant, right? Because if I'm just going there every day, not because I have to be the best at something, but because I want to give my best to something, then that's a totally different mindset. So it's not about, having necessarily a tangible product in the end, but it's that knowing that the journey is what mattered, and it's the journey that's shaping me as a person, and it's shaping kids. Because I
Yeah.
can guarantee you the kids that I've taught, and many of them, are or will be extremely successful. It wasn't because I imparted some amazing fact into them and then that's what has sustained them. If I've contributed, it's been because I've taught them how to be a good person. I've taught them how to have integrity. I've taught them how to manage their time. I've taught them how to persevere, how to motivate themselves, things like that. Not because, you know, fill in the blank with whatever skill they needed.
Yeah. And it's I think that there's a lot of parallels, and maybe it's just because like that's what my life's been has been music. But I just feel like there's so many parallels to music and teaching, because like teaching is very subjective. Like you said, like I think what exactly what you said definitely defines like what a good teacher is, but it still doesn't answer the question of like how do you measure that in how do you measure that? How do
Well,
you how's that gain you merit? You know
well,
what I
okay,
mean? Like
but
how
I guess my follow up is why do you have to measure that, and why do you need merit?
you need merit in order to get to show people that that you're good at what you do, because like the whole reason what we're talking about is that the reason teachers are looked down upon is because it's like there's not a lot of money put into it. Why is there not a lot of money put into it? Because like we don't know how to measure what a good teacher is, so we don't know how to give merit to a good teacher or not. And it's the same thing with like musicians. Like how can you measure a good musician like with his like with good music? Like what one person might think sounds really bad might be what one person thinks sounds really good, and people who you think should never have a gig are probably having hundreds of gigs. You know what I mean? It's like it's
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of parallels with that because they're both subjective. So I think that it's like an underlying faith, I guess. Like you have to have faith that teachers are going to do what they're supposed to do and do it well,
Mm-hmm.
even though you can't measure it. And if you can't measure it, it's scary, because like what they could do is the state could like give teachers like every teacher gets paid $90,000 a year, and then just goes up from there and da da da, and then like you're highly respected. But then what happens is that you have teachers who like aren't good, and now they're getting paid whatever. But then again, I guess that there's doctors that are out there that aren't good, and they
Mm-hmm.
get paid a lot of money. And there's lawyers that are out there that are bad, and they get paid a lot of money.
Well, I mean, and it's
So
very interesting because I mean, like, okay, I mean, just like look at professional sports for a second, okay? I mean, and I don't know these facts or these figures, but I'm just guessing here that one of your like least, how do I say this? Like someone on a professional sports team who gets the least amount of play time, right?
mhm.
My guess is they make more than most educators.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother thing. there's a book I've talked about it multiple times. The Culture Code by Daniel Cody or Kodalai, or I don't know how to say his last name. I really need to figure that out. But in one of the chapters, he talks about the Spurs,
Mm-hmm.
the basketball team, and he talks about how basketball itself, like professional basketball, does not condone team building,
Mm-hmm.
because like whoever scores the most points, and now this was when you wrote the book, and I don't keep up with basketball, so maybe it's changed, but whoever scores the most points earns the most money. So why would I pass the ball to you when I can take the shot, and if I make it, I get extra money, and if I
Mm-hmm.
don't make it, nothing bad happens.
Yeah.
Maybe we lose the point, whatever. And like the coach that he was interested in is that he broke that. He made a culture where he made the team where they favored passing the ball and favored the team over taking the shot.
Mm-hmm.
So like I don't know how we got on talking about that. Something about team building or whatever. But at the end of it all, like there's a I just I don't I it just baffles me that education is just looked down upon. And maybe it's because we don't go year round. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's multiple reasons over a long period of time. So, I mean, I know that since I've gotten into education, which this is my 16th year, I don't think a lot has changed. So,
Well, that it all changed like 2 months ago.
no, I mean, as well, right. But I mean, as far as people's perception of education and educators, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the most change I've seen is the fact that during this pandemic that, you know, people are being sort of vocal about like, hey, we really appreciate our teachers and we really appreciate our school, we really appreciate our school district. You know, I've heard more of that than maybe normal. But at the end of the day, let's see if any teachers get pay raises, because right now
Mm-hmm.
most districts across the United States are anticipating that they'll have to do layoffs next year
Yep. It's
because
gonna
they won't
be.
have enough money. So it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, look at that. In a matter of weeks, you know, educators totally revamped the way school is presented to kids. We ensured that they still had connection. We still fed them meals. We still made sure that kids were getting education to whatever extent possible.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Never stopping.
it's likely that many of us will end up losing our jobs because of it. So I don't
Isn't
know.
that insane?
That is
Like we all
insane.
most educators are literally like killing themselves, and like my heart goes out to like a lot of the older teachers who have maybe even been like a little resistant to technology but dived into it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And like I mean that look, I mean I've been troubleshooting with a lot of like teachers, especially a lot of older teachers who do not understand technology. And even though it took us 2 hours just for them to understand how to make a video conference call
Mm-hmm.
through Google Meet or whatever, like they stuck it out and they figured it out. And like so like we got teachers who are killing themselves just to try to make sure that some form of normalcy is being kept, and that there's some form of something. And next year there's going to be a lot of layoffs,
So,
probably. I
yeah,
mean
I
I don't
mean,
know, but
hopefully
I
not.
can.
Hopefully not. Hopefully things will iron out. But I think, that being said, I think that we are in a very interesting time where people are taking note of education and its role in our society and how important it is. So, you know, I would just encourage teachers to keep on doing what you're doing, because what's really great is, I know from my district standpoint, and my assumption and my guess is that this happened to a lot of people. The pandemic hit, they said stay home, and we just kept doing what we were doing. We had to present it a little differently, but it's not like suddenly we said, well, now I guess we need to start teaching. You know, I mean, we were already teaching.
Yeah.
So I think at the end of the day, as educators, we know what we're doing, and that's why, you know, that's why like this podcast exists in a way, is to be a support system to educators and to encourage them, because it's hard. It's hard, and sometimes you feel like nobody understands it. But you know, hopefully, we're able to unite people to encourage each other. So hang in there.
Yeah. And then my next question is that, like, right now it's very like we appreciate teachers, but like how much is that gonna, and I think you kind of touched on it a second ago, like how much of that's gonna be like we appreciate teachers, yeah, thank you, pat on the back, and like we appreciate teachers, let's invest in this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not it's not like we're money hungry, you know, it's not like
Mm-hmm.
we're grabbing at the cash or whatever, you know.
Yeah,
I
there's none
mean,
to grab at.
we're yeah, we're fortunate enough to live in Texas and like near the a major city where like we get paid probably better than most teachers.
Right.
So like I mean, you know, but there's a difference between saying telling somebody that they appreciate you, or that telling somebody that you appreciate them, and then actually doing something to show that appreciation.
Well, and I think that that's why it's probably safe to say that that's why teachers do what they do, is because of what they get from it, and that is knowing that they are helping kids and they're helping people become successful. And if we're doing it for any other reason, I think we're going to be disappointed. And I think that's why a lot of people might leave the profession, is because, like, if I'm doing it because I have to do it for these kids, then guess what? You can do whatever you want. It's not going to change my mission. You know, I remember, and maybe I'll kind of close it out with this little story, but I remember a defining point in my career. I was, I don't know, I'd been teaching maybe for 5-6 years, something like that. And I was to a point I was super burnout. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And it was probably about March, and I had made up my mind that I wasn't going to come back. And I had this one student who, if ever there was a model student, this kid was the model student. Like, always participated, always did what he was supposed to do, never behavior problem. He was actually a student from Nigeria, right? And he was just like the perfect child, like amazing. Like if I had 100 of those, like life would be perfect. And super sweet kid. And so, you know, me being a band director, we would have after school rehearsals and things like that. And so I kind of gotten to a point where I was like, I'm not going to do this anymore. And I'd made up my mind, although I hadn't told anybody. I was like, I'll just go pursue some other career choice. And this kid ended up staying after school, and his parents couldn't come get him. And so the option was for me to stay there at school with him till like 9 or 10 at night, or his parents gave me permission to bring him home. So, you know, I don't know that I would ever recommend that, especially nowadays, but, you know, 10 years ago, this was a little different. So, so I took him home, and I drove him home, and, you know, it's a few miles away from the school, and he lived in an apartment complex. And I drove up to his house, and he didn't say anything to me other than this. He said, "Thank you, Mr. Pratt. Sorry about the front door." And I like didn't understand what he was talking about. I'm like, what in the world is he saying? And he gets out, and as he's getting out, I realize that his house, his apartment didn't have a front door. That literally there was just a sheet flying in the wind, and that was the only barrier between him and where he was situated. And let me tell you something, I was nervous where he was situated. It was not the kind of quote unquote neighborhood where you just felt like, hey, I could hang out here all day. And I suddenly realized, like, this kid is the kid I'm teaching. This kid who doesn't have a front door to his house. Anyone could come in and do whatever at any time, but yet I would never know, because he comes every day. He's grateful to get an education. He thanks me. He's polite. He's respectful, and his parents support him. And I'm like, this is why I have to keep doing this, because kids like this need a chance. And if I'm not there to make that difference and to teach him what I can teach him for the year, 2, 3 years that I have him, then who's going to do it? You know? And so that was just a really big defining moment for me, that it wasn't about me anymore. It's really about making sure those kids get what they get, and they get what they need. So I don't know. That was that was my moment.
Love it.
Yeah, that was my moment. So anyways, all right. Well, teachers, hang in there. I know that this quarantine is becoming it, and we tried not to talk too much about it today, because we were discussing earlier. It's like, I think we're kind of getting sick of talking about the quarantine. So,
Yeah.
you know, hopefully today you found a little motivation, inspiration. Like, what is that reason that you are doing what you're doing? And I really want to encourage you to kind of take a minute and reflect on that and let that be what drives you. We know it's not the money. We know it's not the recognition. We know it's not the fame. It's because we want to make a difference. So hang in there, keep it up, and we'll see you next time.